Hello and welcome to Todd Talk, where insight meets inspiration. I'm your host, Todd Hiller, and I'm an author, speaker, and longtime community leader, here to guide you on a journey towards fulfillment and balance. In every episode, we'll explore ways to fill life's emptiness, helping you uncover practical tools to create harmony, purpose, and happiness. Whether it's thriving in your career, nurturing personal growth, or simply finding joy in the everyday, Todd Talk is your space for real conversations and actionable advice. So let's thrive together, personally, professionally, and beyond. This is Todd Talk, and I'm thrilled to have you here.
Hello, my friends. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is and wherever you are. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I appreciate you sharing it with me because our time is so valuable. As we walk into today's episode, I want to talk about something that started as a conversation with a friend of mine the other day at the gas station of all places, and ended up really just getting my mind going and my brain working about this idea. The title, it says, "It's hardest before it happens." And that idea to me, I said the words when I was talking to this person. They're moving, and their kids are friends with my kids, and they were talking about how for the first time their son kind of got sad and, kind of had this little moment of like, oh my God, we're leaving, and I'm leaving my friends behind. And I said, it'll be okay. Deep breath, just let him have his feelings, let him work through it, because it's hard until it happens. And then the more I thought about maybe it's hardest before it happens, or it's hard until it happens, or there's lots of ways we could say it. But the idea is, the things we dread, the things we lose sleep over, the moments we brace for almost always feel harder before they happen. And once the moment arrives, we often adapt a lot faster and a lot better than we could have imagined. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I think there's so much hope that can be gained and kind of held onto by remembering all the things in our lives that we dreaded and we worried about. And then how often when they rolled around and they happened, we were like, oh, that's it? We're good. Now we have new things to look forward to. So the idea in my brain too, it's got me thinking about some things from my past. When I was a little kid, I'm talking like kindergarten, 5 years old, I had a hamster. His name was Coconut, and Coconut was sick. He ended up with some kind of growth on him that was cancerous, and so we knew the hamster was going to die. I mean, we weren't really going to do surgery on a hamster because it's a hamster that back then was probably like $6 at the pet store. And it's not that we didn't love Coconut, but, we were just facing facts. So every day I would come home from school while Coconut was still alive, and I would cry. And I would sit in my mom's lap and I would cry and I'd say, he's going to die. It's so sad. I don't want him to die. I'm going to miss him and all this stuff. I mean, day after day after day leading up to this. And then one day he finally died. And when I came home from school, my mom said, hey, honey, come here. We need to talk. And I said, did Coconut die? And she said, yes, he did. And I said, okay, thanks for telling me. And off I went to play, so she tells me, and, I made her, I'm like, are you you're telling me the truth? I wasn't a train wreck. She's like, nope. When he was actually gone, you were like, oh, I already grieved. I'm good with it, and I moved on. And I think so many things in our lives bring us this huge sense of anticipation, and that can be excitement mixed with fear or uncertainty and questions. And the way my young mind was building up the death of this hamster was so much bigger than it actually was, because when I got home, my mom was like, he died. My little brain was like, oh, all right, okay, well, I don't have to be sad anymore because it's over. And it sounds like, so I don't mean it to sound crass, but I think so much of what we dread and what we have leaned into, especially as kids, we anticipate a lot and we fear a lot, right? And even as young adults, teenagers, there's so much worry and anticipation. The first breakup that someone goes through when they're 15 years old is like the end of the world. If you have a teenager, it's never going to be the same. That first breakup, that's it. Life is over as I know it. I'll never have another boyfriend or girlfriend or significant other ever in my life. And it kind of snowballs from there. But I think even as adults, many of us still do the same thing we do as kids, right? We build the unknown into this mountain and this huge, insurmountable thing because it hasn't happened yet and it hasn't arrived yet, and we don't know what it's actually going to be like. So, my friend's son was facing a change and a challenge leading up to them moving. He's dreading it because in his brain it's going to be this big, awful thing. And I know, worry can take over even in the most stable and supportive environments, right? So if you are a person who's like, oh my God, this resonates a lot with me, but gosh, what does that say about me as a parent or a person? Please give yourself some grace, because worry can take over the most stable and steady and rock solid environment when it comes to being supportive and loved, because our brains are a really powerful thing. And kids and adults experience this the same way. I think the anticipation of something really distorts some things and really gives us a different view of how it works. So I think why our brain makes the unknown bigger is because the brain is wired to prepare us for danger, right? It can tell us, hey, we need to go away, run away, fight or flight, get the heck out of this situation. So the anticipation activates our imagination, and the imagination tends to exaggerate, right? Let's be serious. Anytime we imagine something, like in our brains, it gets blown way out of proportion sometimes, because that's kind of how our imagination works. And we rarely anticipate ourselves being strong. I think sometimes we anticipate ourselves struggling because that's just our natural default. We're like, oh my God, this is going to be such a struggle. It's going to be like ice skating uphill. And so I think you need to give yourself some grace if you are someone who pictures yourself struggling, because I think a lot of us do it. And listen, there's two sides to this. Anticipation can protect us, but it can also sabotage us if we don't kind of check in with ourselves and make it so it's kind of has some checks and balances to it. And, when we go through things like this, I think reality often feels lighter than we expect it to. And sometimes that can be a big relief and make us happy and make us smile. But getting to that reality is really difficult, because we have to go through all that hard anticipation and that worry beforehand. Sometimes there's something on our mind and we're like, well, there's a tough conversation I really need to have with someone. And you dread bringing it up, right? Nod your head right now, or if you're, I don't care if you're by yourself, raise your hand, right? If this is something you've worried about, you're like, oh my God, this conversation, you get worried, your stomach twists and knots, you're like, I don't even know how to bring this up. I don't know how this is going to go. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, the conversation happened. That went a whole lot better than I thought. And this happens with significant others, with people we love, with friends, with coworkers, with bosses, with lots of people, right? We get to this point where we work ourselves up into a tizzy, and then all of a sudden we have the conversation and we're like, wow, that really wasn't as bad as I thought. And I think there's lots of situations where this can come into play. In my world too, as a firefighter, there are calls that every firefighter, I think, we mentally rehearse them, and we push them in every catastrophic direction we can. We think, what's the worst that could happen? What could go wrong? If something goes wrong, it's going to go wrong. Plan for that mentally. And a lot of times we get there and we're like, all right, that actually went better than I thought. And sometimes it doesn't always. Sometimes it is chaotic and difficult, but sometimes the things we mentally rehearse and mentally prepare for don't end up being anywhere near as severe and difficult to work through as we thought they were going to be. One of the other really cool things that happens with this too sometimes, I think a lot of times we have these personal transitions in our lives that we anticipate with so much anxiety, and we get worked up. And then later, once they happen, you're like, wow, that was a really amazing turning point in my life. Whether it's a new job you were worried about, or a physical move to a new location, or whatever it happens to be, sometimes now looking back on that, we're like, wow, that was a definite turning point in my life, a beautiful transition, something I'm really glad that it happened. And just because you worry about it and you got yourself amped up about it and nervous about it doesn't mean you can't enjoy it once it's happened. Don't feel guilty if you are happy that something happened that you once dreaded, right? How many people in here have ever dreaded a breakup, right? Oh my God, this is going to be awful. I don't know what's going to happen. And now looking back, you're like, well, thank God that happened. Thank goodness I didn't stay in that relationship. I didn't stick around with that person, or I didn't stay in that situation because I didn't want to be there at all. I'm so happy I moved on. And look, fear thrives in the before, not the during. I have found that to be true in so many aspects and so many instances in my life, is that fear thrives in the before, not the during, because we worry leading up to it. We worry, we turn ourselves sideways, we twist ourselves into knots at the worry and the anticipation and the unknown. And then when it's happening, during the actual event, during the thing while it's going on, that kind of vanishes out of your brain. My daughter and I are currently in a play, and it opens this weekend. And, if you guys are listening Sunday in real time, when this comes out Sunday at 6, if you guys are listening in real time, we're just wrapping up our last show of the weekend now of 6 performances. But at dress rehearsal, my daughter was so nervous. She was like, oh my God, this is so nerve-wracking. Like, there's some people in the audience. Like, this is so crazy. And I'm like, it will be fine. She said as soon as she walked up on stage, she said all her fear was gone. She was just so excited to be up there, like the moment took over. And I think that happens with so many things in our lives. Fear thrives in the before, not the during. I'm going to write that down. I really like that quote. Fear thrives in the before, not the during. I like it. So when the event happens, our perspective shifts, right? Our psychological shift that occurs once the moment arrives, we switch from imagining to doing. No longer do we have to worry about it. Our imagination doesn't get to take over like a runaway train and give us all these crazy things that might happen and might go wrong. Now our body and our brain and our muscles and our mind get to just do it. We get to be in the moment and just start doing things. And that takes away so much fear and worry and anticipation and that overthinking, because now we're like, no, we're here to do it. We know what to do. We're just going to do what we know we need to do. So that process, that doing, that taking action gives us new information, right? It gives us new choices. It gives us new emotions. It gives us new outlooks. And those are things that worry can't predict, right? We can't predict what will actually happen perfectly. We can probably guess sometimes, and if it's a situation we've done over and over again. But when we're starting doing the thing, when we start actually taking action, our real world, real time, real life takes over. And that's a really beautiful moment. And I want to give you some encouragement on this, because sometimes the thing that we are dreading becomes the doorway to a chapter we didn't know we needed, right? I mentioned that idea of a breakup, but that's not the only thing, right? A breakup, a job change, moving across country, moving locations, all those things, right? Sometimes what we feared becomes the thing that makes us stronger, kinder, more grounded, and sometimes it's a thing that we end up being really, really grateful for. And that's okay. So as you approach these unknowns, remember that once they're over, it could be something really beautiful that you look back on and you're happy that it happened. So don't avoid it any longer than you need to. So, and I think one of the things we can do on that note to ease anticipation, right? Because we have to find a way to ease the weight of anticipation. Because how do we do that? I think if you name the worry out loud, I think that can help shrink it. Because if we externalize it, either on our own or with people we trust, we can say out loud, oh my God, this is what I'm worried about. Sometimes our brains hear it out loud and we're like, wait a minute, you're worried about, like, that is the least likely scenario to happen ever in the history of things happening ever. But sometimes it takes us saying it out loud, or sometimes it takes a person that we really trust looking at us and being like, wait, you actually think that could go wrong? And I've mentioned before in other episodes too, I have this great friend who is fantastic at reframing things for me. I will type out these like 3 long paragraphs of things that are on my mind, and they'll be like, okay, so you're telling me your options are A, B, or C. And I'm like, why can't my brain do that? Like, why can't I just distill it down that much? But that's why I have this person in my life, and why I'm so grateful for them is because they give me these options right up front. Like, hey, here's 1, 2, 3, or A, B, C. Take your pick, Hiller. This is what you can do. And it makes me smile just thinking about it, because I'm an over typer. If you've ever messaged with me before, my messages are long, but we need that sometimes. We need to say it out loud, to say it to ourselves or a friend and be like, oh my God, this is this big worry. And then I think saying it out loud and externalizing it really can help shrink it. And when you do that too, ask yourself, okay, what part of this is real and what part is imagined? Because I think when you do that, when you ask yourself that, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of it being imagined, and you can be like, all right, well, so that's just my brain playing tricks on me, right? It's the thing in the dark room that's not actually there when you're a kid. You stare at the wall and you swear you see this object in the dark, right? And there's something there, and you turn the light on and it's either a lampshade or it's absolutely nothing at all. It was just, your brain playing a trick on you. And so when you do this, when you prepare to, more on easing this weight of anticipation, prepare yourself without making things catastrophic, right? Give yourself the facts right off the hop. All right, here's what I have to do. It might go good. It might not go great, but, here's what I have to do from start to finish. Got a tough conversation ahead of me. Might be great, might be awful, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's something that needs to happen. And focus on that. And so when you do that too, focus on that first step, not the last outcome. Focus on just starting. I've talked about this so much, is that momentum can carry you through so many things, and the first step is always the hardest. Make your decision, take that first step and get going and get moving, and then once that happens, you can keep working through it. And stay anchored in that present moment. It's smaller and simpler and easier to manage than the imagined future, right? So focus on that first step. Stay anchored and present right there and be like, okay, what do I have to do to get this ball rolling? And then do that. Because if you try to what if yourself, you will what if yourself to death, right? You could come up with 4,000 what ifs for any situation because our brains are a really powerful thing. And the tough part is our brain has such an ironclad lock and hold on the rest of our body. It will manifest physical symptoms in you, stomach ache, stomach being in knots, worry, queasiness, all kinds of stuff, right? So look at that first step and stay anchored and right there in that present moment, and then do that. And then your body will take over and you can work through the rest of it. And also remember that past moments, sometimes work out just fine, right? And sometimes it's the anticipation was worse than reality. And you will find, I think, that pattern often repeats itself within our history of tackling difficult things. So, okay. The beginning, I started by saying it's hard until it happens, or it's hardest before it happens. And then when it does, we handle it. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not as gracefully as we would hope every single time, but we handle it because we as people are built to rise to the moment. We are built to do things. And I want to remind you, you wonderful little creature, you can do difficult things, right? Isn't there a shirt that says that? Like, hey, you can do hard things, or like you've overcome all of your bad days so far and kept right on going. So you have done that. You've overcome countless hard until it happens moments in your life already. You have overcome so many things that you once thought, oh my Lord, this is going to be impossible. This is going to be absolutely terrible. And when I was talking to my friend, I said, once the move happens and once you guys kick things off, yes, your kids I know are anticipating it now and dreading it now and they're getting sad. But once it happens, they'll have this giant road trip to look forward to. They will have a new school to look forward to. They're going to get to see family because they're moving closer to family. They'll have relatives to look forward to seeing, a new house to move into, a new bedroom to explore. All this kind of stuff, that comes along with this big giant change that will help feed and fuel the positive side of things and take away from that negative worry that has kind of happened up front and before the thing actually happened. And this can be anything in your life. This is relatable, I think, across the board with adults, kids, teenagers, preteens, folks who are elderly, folks who have lived a good long life. It works for every single person. You can always find a way to relate to it. And that's the really important thing to focus on. No matter what you are working on, no matter what you have in front of you to tackle, you are able to do it. You just have to remember not to psych yourself up so much that you worry yourself and tie yourself up in knots. I think something else that's worth noting, too, is you will, I believe this with my whole heart, if you pay attention to yourself and you pay attention to the things in your life that you worry about the most, you can make a positive change in them. I know since I first started driving, I hate being late. I used to get myself so worked up if I didn't know where I was going and I was worried. I didn't know where I was going to park and I didn't know where this new place was. My whole body would feel it. I would be uncomfortable. My stomach would hurt. I'd be so worried and anticipate this as, when I was younger because I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to be late. I don't know what to do. I don't know where I'm going. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if there's traffic? I don't know where to park. So many thoughts used to run away in my brain and so many things used to have a physical toll, take a physical toll on me. I would be rushing to get somewhere and be like, oh my God, I'm going to be late, looking at the clock. And I'm like, oh God. And even if I wasn't going to be late, but I just didn't know where to go because I had never been there before, my body used to have a physical reaction because our brains are so powerful and have such a strong hold over us. I spent a little bit of time, my full-time job was driving a truck for a trucking company. And this really kind of helped me get over that because most of my day, every day, was comprised of going places I didn't know where they were. I hadn't been before. I'm from Connecticut. I was working out of Connecticut, but I drove up to New York a lot to deliver things to New York, to Massachusetts. And I'm like, I've never been here before. I don't know where to go. And I obviously couldn't spend every single day of my life feeling sick to my stomach because I didn't know where I was going, and I was leaving in plenty of time, but it really helped me get over the fact that it's like, don't worry about you're going to get there. And so I had this really silly kind of mental thought one day. I was freaking out about not knowing where to go. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? I don't know how to get there. My stomach was in knots. I'm like, I need to do something. I need to pull over. I don't feel well. And all of a sudden I had this moment. Another dump truck drove past me, and I recognized it from a previous job. And I'm like, oh, maybe he's going to the same place. And so it wasn't that I was going to just follow him the whole way there because I didn't want to go the wrong way. But I had this moment in my brain that sounds so simple and so silly, but I was like, listen to yourself. Hundreds of thousands of people have been to the place where you're going. That's just a fact because it's been there for a long time. It's not some unknown destination where you will never get to. It is a place that you can drive to, just like the other million people who have driven there in the history of it being a place. And so I had this kind of laughable moment like, well, yeah, that's true. Like, just, follow the signs. I had a GPS navigation going, just like drive where you're going to go. And what's the worst that could happen? Like, what do you think is actually going to happen? Like, you're never going to get there? And so I had this check-in with myself, like, well, of course you're going to get there. Just keep driving. The estimated time of arrival in a GPS will go down. The miles to your destination will go down. And then I said, and also, if you don't get there the first time, if you get lost, like, that's not the end of the world. Find a place to turn the dump truck around and then go back to where you're going. And it sounds so silly, but it was a newer job at the time, and I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to be late. I didn't want to, not get there in time. But I'm like, dude, you got to stop psyching yourself up like this. And so that really helped kind of push me over the edge of kind of getting over that. I still 1,000,000% hate being late, and I will leave. I would rather be an hour early than 35 seconds late. So I've adapted now, but I have learned to leave nice and early, and I've kind of gotten over that, like, oh my God, you're so worried and so nervous because what on earth might happen kind of mentality that used to come with driving or going to new places that I hadn't been before. Still exists a little bit. There's still always some travel planning anticipation in when I'm planning a trip, but really for the most part I've gotten over it, which is a really good thing. But that anticipation, believe me when I tell you, it was one of the strongest physical and physiological reactions my brain has ever done to me and ever had on me when that happened. It was awful how bad I used to feel. So you are not alone if you are a person who struggles or suffers from something like that. Please know it's normal. Our brains are very powerful things. You are not strange, but there are ways to work through it and cope with it, right? So just ask yourself, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, how much of this worry is actually based in reality or fact, and how much of it is based in complete conjecture and my imagination just being a real pain in the butt, right? Because I think that happens a lot. So whatever you're bracing for, whatever transition you're standing in front of, whatever mountain you think you have to climb, trust that the moment you step into it, you will find strengths you couldn't see from the outside. Once you start doing it, once you get into it, it will become easier. You will be doing the things you're doing. And in the best case scenario, sometimes once you start it, you'll have new things to look forward to. My friend that's moving, her kids have that whole list of new things to look forward to. If you were having a hard conversation with someone, you'll have so many new things to look forward to. And this will go on. And it's not always an exciting thing once you're working through it, but it will always be an active and changing thing that will bring about some change once you work through it and once you get to the other side of it. And that can bring you a really big sense of relief and joy and happiness to go along with that. And that's a great thing. My friends, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I appreciate your time so much, almost more than I can say, because our time is so precious, and I know we don't have a lot of time, and we are always super busy, and our lives these days, no matter what we are doing or where we are, seem to be so busy, and so much of our time seems to be taken up with things. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate you having me in your ears as we walk through these podcast episodes and talk about the things we talk about, and I really, really am so, so grateful. If there's someone in your life you know who struggles with this, who worries about the what if, who stands and makes things giant and they feel insurmountable and just too big for them to tackle, please share this episode with them, especially if they're bracing for a big moment. Give them this episode and say, here, listen to this. You might feel better walking into what you're walking into. If you do not already follow me on social media, please do so. I would love to have you come along on the journey. I am on TikTok and Instagram as Todd W. Hiller. No spaces, no numbers, no underscores, no punctuation. Just my name, Todd W. Hiller. And if you follow along with me on Instagram, you can also join my Instagram chat channel. That will bring you positive inspiration weekly. I'll send you DMs and messages in your inbox of ways to reframe your day and keep your chin up and keep right on going in a way that you feel makes you feel really happy. I am so thankful that you're here with me. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and please take the best care. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in to Todd Talk. If you've liked what you've heard, please go ahead and subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any updates or new episodes. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.